have had the pleasure, the opportunity to manage a whole bunch of teams, businesses throughout I've got a lot of gray hair now, throughout my extended career. In each of those situations, I've been handed these businesses and I've been asked these teams and I've been asked to find ways to grow users, to grow revenue in the business. And yet there have been tons of constraints placed in front of me. In fact, in some cases, I picked up these products because other people had tried, said, okay, I don't want it. There's too many constraints. We can't figure this out. I believe that product management is all about this. It's all about finding the opportunity, the possibility within these sea of constraints. So now I'm going to tell a bunch of stories here. My career started in earnest, as Raphael said, at Google. I spent 13 years there. I absolutely loved my time at Google. And then, like a crazy person, I thought, I wonder what the rest of the world is like. I wonder if I can do this somewhere else. So I'd say I went on a bit of a walkabout after Google, and I led teams at Pinterest. I led the ride-sharing business at Lyft for about 3 years. I went to this really, really small startup in San Francisco called Varo. Varo is an online financial services company, bank, effectively. It was a really crazy experience. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then, as Raphael and others mentioned, I just got done for the last couple of years or so managing the product, running the product management teams for Walmart in the United States. So I saw this arc of experiences. And throughout it all, I realized there were a set of core principles, tenets, that I was using constantly to figure out how to unlock these constraints. And that's a little bit of what I thought I would share with all of you today. So we're going to talk about 4 things. In many cases, I think these won't seem that surprising. In fact, I bet a lot of you are already thinking about them. But to be frank, it gave me a thread to tie through all of my experiences. What's been interesting is, unlike, I'm sure, a lot of you in the room, I don't know, I've never considered myself that special, that smart. It's not like I'm going to sit down before I start my career and think about, how am I going to manage that career? What are the themes that I'm going to use moving forward? Hell no, I didn't do that. But instead, it's a lot easier when I look back to go, oh, there's some tricks that I've constantly taken advantage of to drive my career forward, to drive the business forward. So that's these 4 that you see on the screen behind me. The screen is huge, so I think you can read them just fine. First, stewardship under requirements. This is all about making do with what you have. How many people have ever had all of the resources that they need to get their products built, to get their business moving forward? Raise your hand if you've always had all of the resources you need. Yeah, I didn't think so. So we're going to talk about stewardship of these resources, of what you have, and why it's useful to take advantage of that, and hopefully that unlocks more growth. Second, re-examine the core. I loved in the intro when Raphael was talking about going deep. It was almost like a page out of my own book. The number of times that I have been presented with a solution where people have felt like the next opportunity for growth is building a new feature, a new product, a whole new business line. That's how we're going to grow. 9 times out of 10, there is more opportunity to grow that business, to grow users, to drive engagement in the very core of the business. You can squeeze more juice out of that proverbial lemon. And I want to talk about some stories there. Betting on people. I mean, this is one of the things that product management's all about, right? And throughout, because I've bet on people, I have been a better person. This was easy at a place like Google, but as I moved into some of these other businesses where I hadn't been there as long, where there's companies where I didn't know the people as well, it was my same sort of approach, betting on people, trusting people, that really unlocked not just great relationships, but really a ton of opportunity. Last but not least, be the conductor. That's what product management is all about. You're not here to play a single instrument. You are here to wrangle the entire orchestra and make that music sound as beautiful as possible. So like I said, we're gonna talk through these 4 themes, and we're gonna do it with, I was told what you all want are war stories, which kind of sounds horrible on stage here as I speak to all of you, but I wanna share some of the good and the bad of what I've encountered in my journey. And then at the end, we're gonna talk a little bit about the future, because these are evergreen themes. They didn't just help us get to where we are today in 2025. I think they're gonna help get us to 2030, 2035. Oh my God, I'm getting nervous about how old I'm getting. But we'll see that they work in the AI era as well. Okay, stewardship under requirements. We're gonna go the Wayback Machine. I was thinking about this morning and thinking about how long ago this was, and I'm hoping all of you were alive at this point. But if we go back in time to about 2026, I am very early days at Google. When I got hired by Google, I was so excited about it, but I did not get hired in the product management organization. I could not get a product management job at Google to save my soul, so I happily accepted a job in the sales organization, and I did that job as a technical account manager. I did that job for about a year and a half before I magically found a way to jump over to the product management organization. There, I was given my first set of products and businesses. One of those products was this crazy product called AdSense for Search. Very simply, this took Google's search ads, the same ads that you would show on google.com on the search results page, and instead of showing the ads there, we put them on partner pages or partner search results. So again, I'm dating myself big time here. America Online, I don't know if we remember that. Amazon, hey, they're still around, that's a good deal. Ask Jeeves, and I can go on and on about companies that are now extinct. Anyway, this was a pretty interesting business for Google. But the product itself was, kind of a hot potato, passed from one young product manager to another, until I pick it up and I think, well, I wonder if there's something we can do with this product. I unpack the business, I dig into the actual metrics to understand how big is this business? How much money does Google make per annum on AdSense for search? It was a $2.5 to $3 billion a year business, $3 billion. And nobody seemed to really care about this product. So I thought, well, this is absolutely amazing. Let's figure out what we can do to make this product better for our users, for our partners, and also generate more revenue while we were doing it. There's a little problem. I had no engineers. There were no engineers assigned to this $3 billion product. The engineers had created the product, then we passed it to our partners to use it, and the revenue got generated, but the engineers moved on to do other things. So I thought, this is easy. This is a pretty straightforward proposal. I have a $3 billion product. I need 10 engineers. We're not even talking a lot when you think about the size of that business. So I marched down to the engineering director's office. Some of you might know this fellow. We'll go by first names. His first name is Sridhar. And I knocked on the door and I said, hi, friend. I dug into this business that I just got a hold of. Did you know it's a $3 billion business? Yeah, I guess. Search ads, Google search ads was much bigger already by the time. I said, look, simple proposal. If you give me 10 engineers, we can find all of the exciting things. We can unlock more revenue growth. We can do great things for our users. We can improve the quality of the ads. And I don't want to say he laughed in my face, but he chuckled. He said, 10 engineers. Tell you what, I'll give you 2 engineers at 20% time each. We're talking early days of Google. You'll all remember the 20% time thing. Yep, it's a myth. It's gone now. But at the time, it actually existed. And I thought, okay, this is not the 10 engineers I was hoping for, but it's something. I could have complained. I could have stomped my feet. But instead, I took those 2 engineers at 20% time. And I tell you, this is some of the most fun I had in my career. I ran the hell out of those weekly meetings. We were in these conference rooms at the time, and the conference rooms had these huge whiteboards. I would stand on top of the couch that was sitting in the conference room so I could get to the very top of the whiteboard, write down all of the notes and the insights that these 2 engineers had for me about what we could do with this business. Ultimately, we discovered that the core machine learning algorithm that was driving those ads for our partners was not well tuned for partner properties. In fact, we were effectively just taking the same exact ads as they'd show on Google, lift them up and drop them on other properties. But I was like, this makes no sense. The users are not the same type of people. We should probably be showing other ads. So with these engineers, we ran a set of experiments. Then we started to discover what was wrong with our machine learning system, and we started finding improvements to that. We launched this fundamental change to how we looked at our AdSense for Search business. And when we launched it, we looked at the results and we were pretty blown away. It was worth about 10 to 15% more revenue per year for that business. That was like $300 million a year that these two 20% engineers and myself unlocked. And because we were a steward with what we were given, that team grew to be about 20 to 30 engineers over time, not immediately, but over time. The PM team alone grew to be about 5 to 10 PMs. And the AdSense for Search business at Google, I think peaked around $12 billion, if not more. All because I didn't sort of stomp my feet or refuse the two engineers and say, fine, I'm gonna go do something else, but because I made do with what I had, we ended up a lot better. Re-examine the core. So, like I mentioned earlier, Raphael talked a bunch about going deeper. This means a ton to me because it's one of the things that I've been pushed on throughout my career, especially at Google. There's a lot more opportunity if you just go deeper in the product. Yet, as soon as I left Google, I started to discover this really odd behavior. Whenever a company, especially an early stage company, startup founder type friends, I ran into this problem where when those businesses stopped growing for some reason, or you couldn't acquire more users, the trick to growing the business again was, okay, that one's done. Let's go build a new business or a new product line or a new set of features. That's gonna be the way out of this. Very rarely do I think that happens. So if we go back to my time at Lyft, when I first joined Lyft, I was the VP of growth. I had been at Google for 13 years. I had no idea what it meant to be the VP of growth. I didn't even really understand what this growth thing was about. I thought, hell, aren't we all here supposed to be trying to grow our businesses? Why do we have a separate function? So I tried to understand how this worked because I wanted to lean in and do more and find ways to unlock more growth and all of this. So I went and I tried to understand what is the goal that we are shooting at here at Lyft. Well, the goal quite simply was we want to drive 50% more rides every year. Okay, at the surface, I guess that makes sense. Everybody wants to grow faster than 50%. That seems to help with the overall business growth, et cetera, blah, blah, blah. What the hell is a ride? Seems like there's a lot of variation under that theme of what a ride is, but okay, we'll figure that out later. The next thing I had to figure out was, as the VP of growth, I was given a, check this out, $400 million a year growth budget. Oh shit, this seemed great. I now had nearly a $500 million budget that I thought I could do whatever I wanted with. This is gonna be absolutely amazing. I first started to run into some challenges, constraints, issues. One of the quarters, we were growing just fine. We were growing at about 53% year on year, again, with this abstract concept of rides. And so I thought, why the hell am I gonna spend a growth budget to drive my growth to 50% year on year if I'm already above it? I will save this $100 million for a rainy day. And then I got dragged into the CFO's office. I thought, this is odd. And he said, you can't do this. You have to spend the $100 million. Oh, okay. Well, I guess there's a lot of things I'd like to buy for $100 million. Great. I'd like to buy engineers, please. How many engineers can I have for $100 million? No. What? You can't use this money for engineers. This is a growth budget. We use it to stimulate rider growth and driver growth. Oh, how do we do that? Oh, we hand them coupons on the rider side of the world and bonuses on the driver side of the world. In fact, there was an enormous operations team led by probably 100 plus humans that were running around. Each person or each area owned their own region or market. And with the help, so it was sort of my job to take the $100 million a quarter, dole it out a little bit to these markets. Then they'd figure out how to spend that money over the course of a quarter to drive and stimulate that growth back and forth. Okay, I guess this works. So, okay, we gave out the $100 million and we kept going in this fashion. Something about this felt just really wrong to me. I wanted to figure out a way to drive long-term sustainable growth in this business. And here we were burning $400 million a year with coupons, bringing riders and drivers together. Thankfully, I didn't know you don't hear this that often, thankfully, COVID hit. Yeah, right? COVID hit, and in the course of about 2 weeks, we lost about 80% of our rides growth. It was crazy. I kind of thought, here's my chance. And it was benefited by the fact that we could no longer run our operations team with that many people. We had to shrink it way down. In fact, we had to use those people to do other things in the business. So I had an opportunity to re-examine how we were going to run this business. It was also the time that I inherited the entire ride-sharing team. So I went from VP of growth to running engineering, product management, and then we invented a new function that was effectively a business operations function, very similar to what we were talking about with these 100 people running the business. But this time, the notion of how we were going to run the business was with technology first. So we were going to use a machine learning loop that would look at the supply and demand matching, try to balance that, bring these people together to drive as much ride growth as we could with an eye towards profitability, not just an eye towards growth. And then at the same time, we dug into what other things could we do for the business and for the users. So with the team, we unlocked, first and foremost, these new ride types. This notion that riders don't care as much to have the car there immediately. Instead, they know that they need a car in the next 5, maybe 10 minutes. I mean, sometimes you need it immediately, but not often. So we launched this product called Wait and Save, which allowed users, riders, to pick how long they were willing to wait for a driver. And the longer they were willing to wait, the more money they saved on the ride. This helped a ton because the marketplace matching this rider and demand, matching riders and drivers and doing it in short time, this created a lot of challenges. So this opened up that space. Because we were now managing the business holistically, we looked at pricing differently. In the past, pricing was just run by the markets, and they would sort of try to figure out the prices. Maybe there was a little bit of algorithmic stuff. But we changed the strategy to something that was very holistic. And we looked at pricing in a way that's similar, I don't know if this will work for everybody, but in a way that's similar to how gas stations think about pricing gas in at least the United States. My guess is also here in Europe. You might go to a corner and you might see 2 gas stations on opposite sides of the corner, and they have very different prices for gas, or maybe it's off by 5 cents. And you go, why the hell would one be higher than the other? Well, and the whole trick to figuring out how to price those things is based on the entire market and your competitors. So you will try to raise prices where competitors won't notice, and in markets where they do notice, you're gonna kind of keep your prices. So we implemented this whole pricing thing. We implemented a new way to run the business. We brought in folks who knew how to work with engineers within a machine learning context. We did pricing, we launched new products. We focused on the core of ride sharing, and we changed the game for how we were gonna look at that business. The results were incredible. Somehow we got through the pandemic, we got through COVID, and not only did we help the business, we brought ride sharing at Lyft to profitability for the first time ever. We threw profit off, and we were able to use that profit for other things. We did this before the folks at Uber were able to get there, and we actually gained market share from Uber at the time. Oh, and by the way, that $400 million a year of growth marketing spend, that largely went away. It reduced to about $50 million a year. One of my proudest moments, all because we re-examined the core. Thanks for your patience as I drink some water. Bet on people. So there's 2 components that I want to talk about here. First is driving alignment. Betting on people is super important, but if you don't first figure out where the heck you're going, you're all going to end up in different directions. I've seen this myself in the past. Some of the teams that I've picked up, the manager before me, great person, but the way the manager before me managed this team, he would say to each of his or her direct reports, okay, this is what I need you to do. Great, you go do that. I need you to go do this. Great, go do that. I need you to, and what would happen? Before you know it, all of those teams spread out in every direction. This was less of a problem at Google because we had set up this notion of OKRs, which really talk about the goal, the destination that we're trying to get to. And then we care less at Google about how you actually get there because we know we'll all be at the same place at the end. This was kind of common sense to me, but I found over and over again that I've had to explain this to other people. And I'm sure in the audience, there's a ton of folks who are like, I don't know, there's OKR tools, there's strategies, there's all this stuff. It's actually really simple in the end. Set the destination, get on the same page, you will be there together. And then once you set that destination and that vision, then it's your job as a leader, as a manager, to really give the tasks to these people, give them space, give them time, do not micromanage, and you're gonna find really magical things come out of it. So for this section, I wanna bring to life this wacky experience that I had at Varo. Again, Varo, online fintech bank in the United States. Our organization, I think, was around, our organization was around 800 people or so. And when I joined, I was the chief product officer. So I came into Varo and I was trying to figure out, the gist, like we've been going through in my experience here. Okay, who am I? What the hell am I supposed to do here? What are our goals? Where are we trying to go? And the CEO was so excited that I joined. He's a really wonderful fellow. His name is Colin Walsh. And most of the executives at Varo came from the banking world. That's one of the things that made us special. For anybody in the banking space who understands the US at all, we had a banking license, which meant we weren't just a front end bolted onto somebody else's bank. It meant that we could actually do things like loan money if only we could acquire enough users and generate enough revenue that we had money that we could do things with. And this is where folks were sort of stuck at the time. So I joined, and Colin Walsh, the CEO, again, super excited that I was there, said, I'm so glad that you're here, so glad we finally have you as Chief Product Officer. Now you can build the features that will bring us all the users that we need and that will retain those users as well. Uh-oh. I don't think that's really how this works. I mean, you kind of have this core value proposition of being a bank, and you've already acquired millions upon millions of users. What are they doing? Like, did you get any value from these users that you acquired? Well, that seemed to be the problem. And the board was pretty nervous as well. They were worried because we were running out of money in the bank and we were not generating a sustainable business. Now, a couple months into my job here at Varo, I inherited more teams, more people. I ran engineering, product, design, and science. So I had all of this, effectively half the company pulled together underneath me. And I had a lot to do. I still had to figure out the business. I still had to figure out the unlocks to get the growth and to get users to stay. But I also had this massive organization that I needed to pull together and help find ways to work together and just be more cohesive. So my time was pretty stretched. So what I did first and foremost is I took advantage of the folks around me. This was a bit nerve-wracking because I did not know these folks that well and I had to trust them for whatever it was. I inherited a chief of staff who came from the finance organization. So wonderful fellow, he and I are still good friends, and he understands the banking business very, very well. So I was able to dig in with him. Another good friend of mine was running data science and the machine learning teams at the time. And so he had really strong math, science capabilities and could help dig in. So I set the two of them up with me on just a goal to look at this business and figure out what we needed to do. We unpacked the business, we looked at our users, we looked at the value that they were creating, and we were kind of blown away. Yes, some users were actually benefiting our business, but on average, in aggregate, we were losing $1 for every user we acquired. And this was after we had spent hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing to bring those users into our platform. So the way we talk about this is the contribution margin per user was on average minus $1. That is not a very healthy business. But together then it set up an end goal for us that I could direct my teams at and then kind of get out of the way. So we said we want to take that negative $1 and we'd like to get that as close to zero as possible, because then once we get there, we can start truly growing this business in a very sustainable way. And that's just what we did. We had set up that alignment and that end goal, and then I was able to leverage and take advantage of all of my teams and say, please work on a set of projects, onboarding, once the users are in, how do we drive retention, how do we drive revenue in a sustainable way, all with an eye towards getting that aggregate negative $1 down as close to zero as possible. Now, some of you are guessing that there's, another job for me to talk about in this arc, and that's right, we're gonna get to Walmart in a second, and Walmart's actually what pulls me out of Varo after only about 7 months' time. Remember in the story, it takes me some time to get the team set up, some time to get the goals set up, but once I did, it was probably about 3, maybe 4 months, very fast, that once we had analyzed, figured out what we were going to do, and I trusted the teams and let go and let everybody run towards this goal, that we got from minus $1, I think I left the company at around minus 15 cents, minus 10 cents. So we had shaved 80 cents off of that contribution margin number, that negative contribution margin number, in about 4 months. And while this may not seem like much, like Alferness, why the hell are you talking about this thing? You just told us about this $3 billion thing where you grew the business by $300 million. By getting that contribution margin back close to neutral, suddenly the company was, one, viable again. The money that we had in the bank would help sustain us and bring us to the next tranche, whatever we have. And two, it gave so much more hope, resilience. We were now in a position where we could grow this business and let it blossom. It was pretty phenomenal for 7 months, and I learned a ton of really interesting things by working with people that I'd never worked with, at a place like Google or even a place like Walmart. It was awesome. Okay, be the conductor. This is not about running the beautiful trains that you have here in Switzerland. They really are amazing trains. I used to have train sets as a kid, and I remember collecting some of the Swiss trains because of how just beautiful they are. In fact, I was admiring them earlier this week as I took one of the trains up to the top of the mountains for some spectacular views. But for my last story, I want to talk about being the conductor. You're conducting a symphony. You're not playing any specific instrument. You're not playing clarinet, violin, etc. You're bringing the entire symphony together and making sure that the music that's created there is really something special. So as a number of people have mentioned, for the last 2+ years or so, I've been leading the product management teams at Walmart US. Seemed like a pretty good opportunity, one that I had to take advantage of, so I left Varo, I jumped to Walmart, and I was really excited, enthusiastic about this role. Walmart's an amazing company, and I thought this is gonna be my chance to really lead teams at scale, and that's exactly what I got. It was a great experience. But there was something rather odd that I noticed, and I've seen this throughout my life, I'm sure a lot of you have. There were a ton of silos that sat inside Walmart. Walmart being very traditional, the company's about 80 years old. So, the health and wellness vertical was somewhat siloed or separate from the e-commerce vertical, separate and siloed from the operations vertical. What our teams were noticing was that, yes, we can do a lot of great work within our vertical, but it's the space between the seams that are really the interesting spaces for our users. In fact, I often do this. While the org chart is sort of lined up in these verticals, the way our users tend to work through the products looks something more like this, right? They cut through all of these different verticals. So in order to be able to build the right kinds of products and experiences, well, you need to be able to coordinate the development process across these verticals, or it's completely discombobulated, disconnected, et cetera. And that's kind of how the company had grown up. The product management, the engineering teams were really abutted next to the business teams that owned these verticals. So the way that products were developed, the way that insights were brought in, et cetera, was somewhat different as I navigated between talking to the merchant teams or the health and wellness or the finance teams or the e-commerce teams. Everybody had slightly unique ways of doing things. So the way one might normally handle this problem is come in and go, okay, we need to change our processes here. We can't do product management in this way. We are all going to adopt an OKR process, and we are going to do whatever quarterly stand-ups. We're going to go through what we're up to, et cetera. We're all going to come into one room. We're going to cut through the different silos we have. It's going to be amazing. Yeah, I would have loved to have done that. Product management at Walmart wasn't really in the place of strength where I could tell my business friends that, okay, just hold on for the next couple of months. We're going to reconfigure out how we do all of this stuff. We were flying the ship and we had to change out the engines. So we explored a number of different solutions here, but one that we came up with is not rocket science, but it shows how if you focus on some of the simple things, you can bring your orchestra together and you can really start to sync them up. So what we looked for was what was the smallest possible change that we could make to the product management and development process that might give us a bit more coherence than we have right now. And so we did something that's really, really simple. We implemented stage gates. So in general, there's separate stages when you're developing a product. You go from ideation to, okay, I'm actually going to do some amount of PRD building, maybe a little bit of experimentation. You come all the way down to, okay, we've kind of built the product. We need to do QA. We need to do release. We can kind of put stage gates throughout all of these. And the stage gates that we implemented on the product management side gave us an opportunity to just signal where these products were, how they were doing. And it allowed us to then start to connect these disparate products and disparate products across with this one process. So what were we able to do when we did this? Well, we were able to bring to life some of the most exciting products, I think, that we launched in Walmart in the last few years. Simply put, okay, we'd been doing delivery from stores for a while since I got there. But we were very excited to figure out how we could integrate pharmacy delivery with the rest of our delivery products. The notion, at least in the States, pharmacy, this was prescription pharmacy. Pharmacy doesn't deliver a lot of margins. You know, most of the margins of the top drugs in the United States are basically zero, neutral. But the habituation, the frequency that you got by having your pharmaceuticals delivered to home meant that you were more likely to use our delivery products in the future, more likely to bring in, whether it was general merchandise or especially food and grocery, we're able to bring that in as well. So we were able to launch things like pharmacy delivery. Lining up and syncing up our product management teams also meant that we could think about platforms for the first time ever, which is really exciting. You're not going to believe this, but in Walmart, there were 3 CEOs under Doug. There still are. A CEO for Walmart US, Walmart International, and Sam's Club. Each of those segments or areas, if not more, built their own versions of an e-commerce site. Each of those segments built their own search engine, for crying out loud. And they didn't share the technology across, largely because they sat in these silos and they couldn't coordinate themselves. Once we had set up these stage gates and we were able to better coordinate across, we suddenly unlocked the power of platforms. We built platforms for marketplace, for our third-party products. We built platforms for search, platforms for the e-commerce site. And the teams are on to even more now. All because we instituted this very small process change that allowed us to operate better together, all because we thought about our job as being the conductor, as orchestrating these product management teams and trying to figure out how to do this in the finest way possible. Okay, so that takes me to about 7 or 8 months ago. It's been a whirlwind career and I've had a ton of fun. But one of the questions that I hate for some reason is, so what are you going to do next? I don't know. But I am pretty excited about this AI thing that is going on everywhere. And we talked about it for a while yesterday, so I don't have too much time to go on about this in depth. I will say it feels a little bit different when I'm in San Francisco thinking about artificial intelligence than when I'm here in Zurich. In San Francisco, you cannot escape AI. It's absolutely everywhere. Waymos will run you over in the street. They won't actually, but there are Waymos everywhere. And in any restaurant that I go into, this is both a blessing and a curse, I hear people talking about the latest and greatest models, whether they're from Anthropic, OpenAI, or somewhere else. I mean, it is this thing. And everybody thinks the entire world is going to change because of AI. It's terrifying. I mean, there is a chance that it does, but there's also a chance that maybe the same principles that we use to get us to where we are today could apply in this AI world as well. So let's run through them quickly. Stewardship. Taking care of the resources you're given, doing more with less, is so important in this AI age. In fact, in San Francisco, I don't know if you talk about it here, but we talk about what is going to be the first company to reach $1 billion in revenue with one employee. Yeah, that's maybe fanciful, but this whole notion that thanks to all of these tools, we can do a lot more with fewer people, I don't think there's any escaping that. So I think this principle continues to apply forward. Re-examine the core. For the love of God, do not bolt AI onto a product that you have. If I see another product where somebody's been like, we brought AI and large language models to the product, and the way you did it is, and I'm sorry for anybody who's done this in the audience, I'm just realizing this could be a bit rude. The way that you did it is that you pasted on a pane to the right of your product, and you're like, okay, that's my little ChatGPT space. Now I've embedded AI in my product. I say, no, you haven't. Don't do that. Instead, think about what are the capabilities that AI gives you? What is your product and your business really about? And how do you inject it into the core? You're going to find much larger unlocks there. Yesterday, I talked about search at Walmart and how we fixed product search, not by re-implementing product search as we would at a Google or Amazon, but by leveraging components of large language models and actually using that in our architecture. That's what I mean by re-examine the core in this space. Betting on people, you have to. And you have to bet on people in a way that brings them along on this AI journey. Give them the tools, give them the education, give them the time. Allow them to play and start to discover their own insights. Do it in a way that's safe for your data. There's ways to make that happen. But bet on people by bringing them along on this AI journey, and you're going to have a much better time. And last, AI, or be the conductor. AI touches every function. This is no longer a product management, engineering, data science game. This is about making sure everybody in the organization has the same understanding, the same set of tools, can play with the data, can play with the tools themselves, and understand what AI is going to do for them. If you cannot just explain where AI is now, but if you can do your best to explain where this AI envelope is going to be in the next, say, 18 months, that's the way that you bring your entire company along. And that's where these incredible ideas can bloom outside of your own teams. They might come from your CEO. Oftentimes they do. They might come from your CFO, your chief legal officer, or somebody else, as long as we bring everybody along with us. I need to wrap there. I'm just about out of time. Hopefully this has been somewhat interesting as we've talked through my journey, the experiences that I've had through this incredible journey of leading product management and technology teams. But most of all, I'm super grateful to be here, super grateful for all of you, and I hope you have a great time at this conference, and I look forward to chatting with you all more. Thanks so much and have a great day.